But I think the whole question of like, why do we have unions? Why do we have the 8-hour workday? Why are all these things available? Right. It's like, it's because of socialism, and socialism has become a bad word. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that he's letting people call him that in a negative way without saying, well, this is what that means. This is what it stands for. This is what it's done for all of you.
It's not a bad word to me because I am a self-proclaimed socialist. So,
I mean, government is a form of socialism in and of itself. I mean, government is supposed to make sure that everyone has access to basic stuff like streets and roads and schools and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I mean, it's the Republicans' job to limit how much that happens, except when it comes to what they want. But that's essentially what government's supposed to do.
Coming at you live all the way from the lower bottoms of West Oakland.
Lower bottoms.
Sound waves. Tonight, I'm a little upset. A couple things happened. Well, first of all, let me say I have two guests on the show. I recruited 2 black women because, first of all, there's not too many women that are on the show. And you know how hard it is to find black women in Oakland that want to come to a stranger's loft?
There are at least 2.
Yeah, I'm number 2, and that's number 1. So you can call me black number 2, black woman number 1. That's
so funny. Hard to do this. Be like, hey, come to my loft. I got a podcast.
Well, that sounds creepy as hell.
It does.
Maybe that's why I got so many drinks thrown on me at the bar. You want to come to my loft? I have a podcast.
They hear that all night.
I thought that was hot in these streets.
Yeah.
So tonight we have actually a good friend of mine, Nina Qualls, who works in the financial sector. And we have a new friend of mine, Tonya. Can I say your last name? No.
Love.
Okay.
Black
Tonya
person
Love.
number 2.
Black woman number 2.
Black woman number 2.
By the way, my last name is Mendoza and now has been for about 12 years.
Yeah, about that. I went to high school with you, so
yes,
but I thought you hyphenated it. That's so 80s.
Only for work.
That's so 80s.
Only for work.
You're such Melanie Griffith from Working.
I don't want people.
When you hyphenate your last name, that comes with shoulder pads.
Well, my first name is already a Spanish name, so if we just do Mendoza, then people will think I'm Latin, and I'm not. So there, boom, in your face.
Bam.
Fair enough.
But I wanted to get some super intelligent women from the black professional managerial class, and I had to send out scouts. I was like, hey, who are 2 of the most brilliant minds you know? I asked another friend of show, Jabir Fakir, and he really quickly, he was like, I know one.
And that's such a compliment.
Only 1, 2 of everybody.
Oh, no, he knows a lot of people. Yes. So for him to single me out,
like, I'm not trying to be funny. Like, it was really like, we're back and forth. I'm like, no, seriously, dude. Like, right. I want to do this show. I want to have this conversation. The show, I want to talk about coronavirus and capitalism. But I also have to talk about Tuesday. We have to talk about Tuesday. And the Democratic Party.
Now, this past Tuesday or the Tuesday before?
This past Tuesday.
Yesterday.
Like yesterday.
Yeah.
The day that all these people are like sad about because Bernie lost Michigan.
It's the end.
And there's been so much talk about Joe Biden getting the black vote, and then I finally heard is it Reverend Clyburn, or is it? Every time I hear an old black man talk, I assume you're a reverend of some kind, like that. Like that's how you get into office. Like you're, I'm not gonna raise your taxes, but maybe I will.
I know I will.
I ain't gonna sign my name on the reparations bill. That's not what that guy said at all. But he did say something about getting behind Joe Biden because Joe Biden loves black people. I'm paraphrasing.
Right.
And historically, Joe Biden has not been the friend of the coloreds. Historically, he's had Anita Hill. Joe Biden is not very high on Anita Hill's list.
Oh.
We can go in some prisons, talk to some black people that aren't very happy with Joe Biden and his crime bill, and definitely does not like brown people because he has been trying to go to war, or was trying to go to war with Saddam Hussein since 1998. So,
And what about his poor people versus white people comment that he made?
That was
not that long
beautiful.
ago?
They're just
the
like white
Freudian
people.
slip, yeah.
Black kids. They can do shit like white kids can do. They can jump. And the black kids love my hairy legs. They said I had golden hair on my legs and corn pop.
Or what about the, kids, black kids aren't doing well in school because their parents can't read or something?
And they play the records in the house, and they get in the house, and they play the hip hop, and
Hippity hop.
what are they going to do? You know the thing. They've been playing that sound bite with this fool. We hold these truths. You know the thing.
You know what it is.
He sounds like Bill Cosby, like Eddie Murphy doing Bill Cosby right now. Like, he's gone. And to have all these black people be like, not all of them, because it's not every black person, but to have certain black people being like, I just need a return to normalcy. I'm like, word?
So let's put someone with dementia up there.
No, I mean,
Old fucker.
it's let's vote for Obama again. That's what they think they're doing.
But
Well, here's something I heard or saw on Facebook. Someone had posted that black people are voting for Biden because he worked for a black man and was the second in command and basically was just underneath a black man.
saw
and he
that.
was okay with that.
I saw that.
And so
That's
that
what I said.
means
They're
they
voting
trust
for
him.
Obama again.
like,
Well, they trust him as being able to take direction from a black man, so he must be a good guy.
I also, do you think, here's a real question for the both of you.
It's ridiculous.
For everyone in this room, do you think, I never give out. I'm also here with trusty producer, best friend,
What am I,
Alex
chop
Miller.
liver?
Alex Miller, all beef, no filler.
He has like a really nice tape tattoo.
There's a lot of tattoos. I like the one on the other side too. No, not
which
that
one?
one.
The
What's the back?
rose?
The
Oh, thank
rose.
you.
In the
My girlfriend and I have matching rose tattoos.
in the old school tape
mean,
deck.
That's why.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a marker, but still, it looks great. Looks like he just drew on it with a marker.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, black women are gonna tease you.
Is
way worse
Sacred
than men.
Tattoo still down there? There used to be Sacred Tattoo. Is it still there?
Yeah.
That's where I got my first tattoo.
Oh, nice.
Don't listen to me. I don't deal with voluntary pain, so I'm not.
Once
I
you
don't
get
have
one, you're like, oh, that's cool. I
Let's
can
do
do
it.
more.
Yeah.
Be original. Don't get one.
I am original. I
It's
have
got more
enough.
punk rock. Oh, you do have one?
I have enough life scars on my body that I'm okay with.
Oh, that was sad.
No, but I feel it. They're like a rite of passage, or it helped me to grow and all that good stuff.
You
So
have kids?
no,
Okay.
yeah,
No, not those life scars.
No, not those kind of life scars.
no,
No, those are called life marks.
no, just
Stretchy life marks.
Stretchy life marks.
no, like events that I can remember.
a bikini again. It's all your fault. My girl is constantly, not constantly. She did. I should shut up. I said I wasn't gonna bring her up. She definitely.
Shut up,
got in
Dad.
Shut up. But no, seriously. How do you guys feel when you hear stuff like that? Because do you think that? Do you guys think that people think? Black people think, and we can't talk for all black people. It's
No,
just
I'm going to talk for the three of us.
Do you think that people think that Obama had like a list or like a big book of who to pick for vice president, and he was going through it? He was like, Joe Biden. That's what I want. I want Joe Biden.
Wasn't Joe Biden was a candidate too, right?
He's run for president a few times.
No, when Obama was running, he was a candidate, right?
Was he running that year?
I'm
08?
trying to remember.
I don't-
Because usually
I
they
remember
just,
Lieberman running. I don't remember Joe Biden running.
but usually what they do is they pick another candidate who didn't do so well, but would probably compliment them.
He ran in the 88 election and backed out in 87 because he had lied about being part of the Civil Rights March, and he got called out on it.
Biden?
Yep.
Dang it.
Biden recently lied about being arrested with Mandela.
What?
You didn't hear that?
No.
Yeah, he was like, I helped. Basically, he was saying that he got apartheid. He was part of the movement to get apartheid lifted in South Africa. And he had said he got arrested with the ambassador to South Africa, who's the light-skinned dude that used to hang with Martin Luther King. You know what I'm talking about.
No.
Real light. He was a pretty boy back then. Like Yo Color. Real caramely motherfucker.
There's a lot of people like Stokey. No.
No, it was Stokely. Yeah, it definitely was not Stokely Carmichael. It was Andrew.
See what I know. I'm not that smart.
Andrew.
Google
His name is
search.
Andrew something. I can't think of what
Was
it
he
is.
the mayor of Atlanta at one point?
Yes. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know. I see his face, but I can't place his name.
But he came out and he was like, hell no. I never got arrested with Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And hell no, he was never with me at Mandela's cell. And then Joe Biden had to come back and be like, well, what happened was
What happened?
the police was there and the police had guns. And it was like, you can't go see Mandela. And I was like, I'm going to see Mandela. And it was like, no. And I was like, damn, it's like being arrested.
Wow.
That's Joe
different.
Biden.
Get
That's
the hell out of here.
That's the Joe
Not
Biden
excited
that's
about
got
him at
our
all.
best interests at heart because he worked with Obama. But that goes back. Like, do you think people think that there's like Obama chooses that guy, like he gets that choice?
Ooh.
Or if like somebody tells you.
Yeah,
You mean like the DNC power brokers
Yes.
that
that Obama now is a DNC power broker. He
Right.
is why you have Tom Perez.
right.
I think, and I would love to digress to the person who knows way more about this than I do, but I feel like politics is like an exercise in like compromise. And like no side ever gets exactly what they went out there to get, but the only way you can get anything is to get something less than what you wanted. And nobody ends up getting what they really wanted in the end.
Do you
I
think
agree
that-
when it comes to like policy,
Yeah,
but I also agree. I also kind of believe to a small extent that the DNC has a lot of control over who ends up succeeding.
we're seeing the DNC's power right now.
Right. And we saw it during Bernie Hillary,
Definitely.
you know? But it's really more apparent to me now because I'm paying attention. But for me, my biggest complaint is the fact that, you know, there were so many candidates of color and the DNC had all these strict rules about who can attend a debate and who could.
Unless you're Mike Bloomberg,
Right.
you could buy
Buy
your
your
way.
way
You can
in.
buy your way in, but it was so difficult for these candidates to even, you know, even participate in debate. And that's how the DNC kind of controls things.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally believe that when it came down to, speaking back to last Tuesday, they're like, look, we need you to just give up because it's time for us to focus on one or two people. And I believe that some people were heavily pressured to drop.
So I heard, so before you guys got here, I was
Right.
listening to one of my favorite shows, The Michael Brooks Show. It's a podcast. Check it out. He had Adolph Reed Jr. on his show. And Adolph Reed, I was telling Nina this earlier. I don't know if you know
Right.
Adolph Reed. He actually wrote about, he basically predicted Obama in 96. And when I say predicted Obama, like he was like, there's a young black guy in Chicago that seems to be
Charismatic.
Yeah. It was like
Speaks well.
There's a young. I'll have to find the quote.
I'm very
You know what,
articulate.
Alex? Pull up. Turn the internet on and pull up Adolph Reed Obama quote 1996.
I'll do it on my phone. Just to.
Basically, it was like there's this charismatic young black guy that's holding these meetings in kitchens, but I really think he's part of the Wall Street class, and this is the future of the Democratic Party. In 96, he said this. And so he was talking about Buttigieg and Klobuchar dropping out at the same time. And he was like, apparently Jimmy Carter had called Pete Buttigieg. The word that we're all getting is like Obama orchestrated this behind the scenes with the DNC. And so Reed was like, and again, I'm just going off what I heard from Adolph Reed. He could be high out of his mind. I doubt it, but he could be. And he was like, I wish I knew what Carter said to him. Maybe he was promising him a vice president position, but a dude that was finishing third and really had no business getting the platform he got, but dropped out of the race. And then Amy Klobuchar, apparently at a stump speech or a rally in her home state of Minnesota, got some Black Lives Matter people came up there and really put the wood to her. And he goes, Adolph Reed said, and I quote, "I'm not saying it's the horse head in the bed situation, but you kind of know what I mean when these people just show up and start calling you out on your record." Because no one's really brought Amy Klobuchar's record as a prosecutor up in any of these debates. But it is a really horrible record when it comes to prosecuting black people. There's a large Eritrean community in Ilhan Omar.
Yep.
Do you think the DNC had something to do with Black Lives Matter people showing up at her rally?
I don't know. I'm not connected into that community enough to know where they stand. I think it's interesting that the people that I've seen, the I don't want to say the spokespeople for them, but I don't even want to say the higher ups because it's not that type of organization.
Right.
They were all endorsing Warren and Sanders. I always felt it was weird for the Warren endorsement because I've always seen Warren as kind of like, I think 2016 was her moment. And she didn't run, and she ran away from all of her progressive agenda. She ran away hard, and to still stand by. And maybe because you make an endorsement, you got to stand by your candidate. I don't know, but I always found it like, really, Warren, word.
I think what she did around the establishment of the CFPB was huge, and I don't think she stressed that enough. And like I said, I didn't watch as much of it as I should have, but the CFPB is huge, and she's the person behind it.
Yeah.
And as a former bank regulator and somebody who's in this world dealing with, consumer rights and consumer laws and protection, that was huge. And it really hit a lot of financial institutions, directly, in the gut. And I think that she should have really rode that platform because it's made a difference for, it's really made a lot of the financial institutions have to be accountable, have to establish programs to ensure that they're not taking advantage of people, more so than really ever before. I mean, they're running scared of the CFPB. And I think that that's something that really speaks to, I'm on the side of the people. I'm trying to advocate for you guys. And I think she should have spoken out more about that. But I think you're right. She ran away from a lot of the accomplishments that she has had.
And then the tantrum that she's thrown since she's dropped out, I'm not really a big fan of.
Did she ever endorse anybody?
No.
She hasn't. I don't think she has.
Let me ask you guys, how do you guys feel about what she said about the Bernie people being mean to her online?
I can believe it. They're mean to everybody.
That's just the internet.
That's just the internet.
I know. Yeah, no, but
everybody, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even before, well, I don't know. I just seen, I know people who are Bernie supporters who are just mean, who just go for the gut.
Yeah.
It's just like they have to defend him to the death. You're not a real progressive unless you're a Bernie supporter.
Okay, but what about all those memes of making fun of Bernie Sanders? Have you seen the ones where it's like him standing there and it's like I'm once again asking for blank, and like they just keep filling in the blank with like I'm once again asking to borrow your drum set. Just like ridiculous like band.
Yeah.
Those are more funny. No, there's fucked up memes because I'm always on the side of people because of touring for so many years. I do have a lot of friends that are way further right than me, and they definitely post. This woman posted something today about Venezuela, and I had to be like, look, first of all, let's talk about sanctions.
Right.
And so Bernie Sanders definitely gets a lot of it because of the socialist tag.
Yeah.
To that point, back to the whole...
Her whining about it, though?
Yeah, how do you feel about her? Like, I need some time to think about this. It's like, dude, this is how I look at it. If you're a progressive, and if you understand there's a real problem across the street from us right now, me and Tonya just walked in front of it. There's a giant homeless encampment that has grown exponentially every year since I've been here. And I say this every fucking week on the show because I want people to really understand what it is. This started during Obama. It got big during Obama, and it's just the same under Trump, right? This is bipartisan growth.
Yeah.
And if you're running for these people, then you need to push a candidate forward that's going to help these people, not sit around and cry about
Split
mean
hairs.
tweets and say that it was the misogyny. And I think that turns a lot of people off.
But at the same time, it's real.
You really think misogyny was the reason why she didn't win?
No, I don't think it's the reason why she didn't win. But I think
I believe it exists. No,
yeah,
I'm with you on that.
I don't think it should be excused or not talked about. That's what I mean.
Well, and this is what I was saying before about the whole like politics as a compromise is where you're thinking about the greater good. Like ultimately, what do you want, Elizabeth Warren? You know, and is it ultimately the same thing as what Bernie Sanders wants? Then don't badmouth him. You know, jump on board. You're not going to be the one. It's maybe going to be him this time. So, you know, put your differences aside and jump on board. And I mean, again, to the kind of uneducated onlooker, that's kind of how I see it. It's like, absolutely.
I think she could
recognizing that you're a woman and recognizing that some of your ideas are different from his. But ultimately, if we're thinking about the people across the street, and you know it's not going to be you, well, you know it's not going to be Trump. So who is it going to be? You know it's not going to be Biden. You know, so stand behind the person that's going to support the same group of people that you're trying to support.
I think she can do a bit of both, right? She could say, you know what? I support Bernie because we have the same values and we want the same things. At the same time, I'm not appreciative of how I've been treated. She could do that. She could do it after she endorses him or something. But I don't think she should stay silent about how she was treated.
I mean, you're
in this
running
election.
a presidential campaign. I really hope that Twitter is not where you're. If you're sitting there reading Twitter and you got people read Elizabeth, that snake emojis everywhere, Elizabeth. You know, if that's your campaign, there's a problem there.
Well, I don't think it's just social. I don't think it's just Twitter or internet.
If you're a celebrity of any kind,
that's part of it.
And you're gonna get all butthurt about that. Stay off the internet, because Google.
I'm nobody, and people say fuck.
It will
up
destroy
shit.
everybody.
There's trolls and shit posters.
But there's stuff that probably happened that we don't even know about when it comes behind the scenes, or it becomes getting access to, you know, certain levels within the debate, or getting access to questions, or getting access to money, or anything like that. There could be levels to this.
She was getting PAC money, and then she stopped.
All right. But I'm just saying it's probably more than just what you see on the internet.
The debate to your point about the debate, she got a pretty good platform on the debate. She was regularly the only woman. Marianne Williamson, who during the debates I thought was a little weird, but when I watched her on Dave Rubin, I was like, oh, you actually aren't as bad as I thought you were. Maybe not. I want you to be president, but I need you to talk on these debates. Tulsi Gabbard the same way. I don't really agree with a lot of her foreign policy. I don't like the fact that she's buddy-buddy with Modi. If you think Trump is bad, check India.
Present.
What'd you say?
She's just present.
Kamala Harris. Say what you will about Kamala Harris. You know, I'm not a Kamala Harris fan, but I felt like she should have been on that debate stage. And when those people were taken off the debate stage, was it bad campaigns? Was it DNC rules? Was it sexism? Was it racism? Is it all of it? I don't know.
I just think at the end of the day, like what you were saying, you know, the DNC wants to put the best candidate forward, the one that they think is most likely to win. And that means that some way or another, they're going to have to weed out all these other people who are not going to win. You know, and I mean,
to your point, the debate all over the summer up until now, I mean, I got tired of the debates. Because they just kept saying the same thing over and over again in just a different flavor. And so after a while, I got bored. I stopped really paying attention. Because there's just too many of them.
I didn't watch the last two.
They didn't have enough time to talk. And, you know, they're just yelling at me. Blah, 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 and it was just crazy. I know y'all didn't see that. I was just like doing talking heads. But it was not interesting anymore. And I the only reason why at first I was watching is to see who would say something that would stand out to me. But they all kind of mirrored one another. And the last one that had no person of color, the only thing interesting about that one was how many times they said person of color in the debate. And every answer, people of color, black people, brown people, blah, blah, blah. And every answer.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like they were making a conscious effort to know that, yes,
that
I'm
there were
white.
none there
They're
to
all
represent.
white.
I mean, at the end of the day, they're politicians trying to connect with.
Right.
Like I feel like the DNC has done masterful work with the black voting class, with making black people think that Bernie Sanders is against their best interests and Joe Biden is going to beat Trump. Like, that's masterful work.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
Because watching Joe Biden, it's the thing, you know, the thing. And then to know his history. And then you got this one guy over here that you might not know his history, but if you don't think he's been vetted from the 2016 race, then you're fooling yourself if you think there's going to be a skeleton popping out of his closet that didn't pop out in 2016. He's kind of just been on the right side of history. I do think he ran, and apparently it kind of got admitted by his press secretary, Breonna Joy Gray, with a wink and a nod in an interview I saw her with on the Karen Hunter show, that Bernie ran initially to put Medicare for all on a bigger platform. And like that was his whole point, and then it kind of got legs and it took off. But now that it's gotten legs and taken off, and it's become a movement, because I always say, without Bernie Sanders, you don't get AOC, you don't get Ilhan, you don't get Rashida, you don't get who I work for, Shahid Buttar running against Pelosi. You don't get any of that without Bernie Sanders. You don't get this new quote unquote political wokeness. And a lot of people, me and Nina's age to Alex's age and even younger, that want to learn more about things like socialism. And another big question or big topic I want to talk about was, do you guys think that black people have been disconnected from their radical / socialist past? So I'm talking about the radical king that opposed the Vietnam War. I'm talking about Thomas Sankara. I'm talking about CLR James. Our legacy in Haiti, the only successful slave revolt.
And even the Malcolm X that didn't get killed until he recognized the interconnectedness of everybody's struggle.
Exactly. How do we reconnect our people with that legacy?
I don't think we've lost it, because I know we live in the bubble of California.
The Bay Area.
The Bay Area.
The Bay Area.
Really right
Of
here,
Oakland.
The East Bay. That's even
East
Berkeley,
Oakland.
Yeah.
But I'm around people all the time that have that radical, movement building type of activity. And I can see it in pockets of people. And I saw it in, the Black Lives Matter movement, even though people always complain no real change happened. I think change happened. It happened slowly. I think we romanticize,
The 60s.
The 60s and the civil rights movement. We only know what we were told or what was on the news or what's in the history books. We don't know how hard it was for them to actually get people to do that.
Just to get to that point.
To get to that point. Because I see a lot of people say, MLK was just awesome and he was this greatest person and whatever. At the same time, they didn't really like him back then when he was alive.
Yeah.
He probably had to convince and fight and cajole and plead and beg black people to follow him.
Soften his message.
And soften his message or change his tone or do whatever. We act like just because Martin Luther King snapped his fingers, everyone jumped and did it. I don't think it was that easy. And so we have people now who are doing all that great work, and it's a struggle and it's hard. And not everyone's believing them. Just look at football guy, Colin Kaepernick. He accomplished a lot, even though he wasn't successful in being able to get back into the NFL.
He did something way more important.
He did something way more important, and people still don't like the man.
Martin Luther King, to the radical king.
Right.
This is one of my favorite quotes. I had to look it up. Power. This is about love and power. So King read Nietzsche, and King actually would quote Nietzsche during a lot of his speeches.
Right.
Power without love is reckless and abusive, and love without power is sentimental and anemic. Power at its best is love implementing the demands of justice, and justice at its best is power correcting everything that stands against love.
Wow.
That's the radical king that doesn't say, and then one day my little colored children will get to stand next to a beautiful white child with long flowing blonde hair. It just flows so nicely in the sun, and her eyes are blue like the fucking ocean.
Can you put that up on the screen so I can reread it and look at it and think about it?
That's a beautiful, right?
I love that.
Right? That's a beautiful. It's a beautiful quote. King was reading Nietzsche. There's a great documentary called King in the Wilderness, and it's about when Martin Luther King decided that he was going to go against the Vietnam War, when he was getting into it with LBJ, and they actually take the phone calls that LBJ and King had, and all the surviving members of his party are in it, and they're talking about what was going on at the time and how he was just stuck. Black people wasn't fucking with him. Some of these white people wasn't fucking with him, and it became like a big push and pull. Like the people in the camp were like, we got the Civil Rights Bill passed and this Housing Act passed. You got to go against the Vietnam War. And then that's when he wanted to start the Poor People's Campaign, which is now Reverend
Jesse. No. Al.
No.
Somebody.
Reverend. I'll have to look up his
person.
name. Too.
I don't know.
There's a new black man. He's a reverend out of North Carolina that's taken up the Poor People's Campaign from where Martin Luther King left off.
Okay.
And he's actually doing some great work down there.
Is he
in
the
North
one
Carolina.
that said that Jesus would vote for Bernie Sanders?
Probably. Yes. Jesus was a socialist. He's the one that said that. Yeah. I think we're disconnected with that king. I do think we're as a whole.
Well, see, again, being in the bubble of Oakland, and I hang out with people that try to remind us of that. Like every year we do what's called the Radical March in January, and it started off I think maybe 4 or 5 years ago. And the first one we did was we started in East Oakland, went through deep East Oakland, and marched there because we wanted to reach the people that we needed to reach.
That he was trying to reach.
That he was trying to reach. And they remind people of it every year when they do the march. They're not quoting his, wonderful, famous speeches, and, they're going to places that are, like going to disturb people. So I think...
But you have to temper that with the fact that you are in the bubble.
Yes,
that
exactly.
is not reflective of the rest of the world.
King got co-opted by the black professional bourgeoisie.
Yeah.
And people use Martin Luther King to tell the black kids to pull their pants up.
Yeah, and they also, in a sense, Obama did it with let's all go and volunteer on MLK Day.
He's kind of like that personified. That's what you. One day you can be Obama. Remember, like before Obama was like, you might be able to be good enough to be maybe Jesse Jackson. And after Obama, it's like, well, now kid,
you can be. I'm a huge fan of Obama, but I'm also very cognizant of how he's not helped us and almost, harmed us in certain ways.
So let me ask you then, see if you agree with me on this. Why are you still a fan?
The moment.
He had a good marketing team, dude. He had
Keep Hope Alive.
He won the award.
Not just to Keep Hope Alive.
The award for marketing a person.
That photo of the little boy touching his head, man. He has this, his publicist or photographer had this book. I bought that book because I always want to remember that. I always want to remember that he brought black artists to the White House, or he talked about being black and wasn't afraid of being black in the White House. That meant a lot.
And there's something to be said for the precedent. And I think that's why we now are voting for Biden, because of the precedent that Obama set by saying there can be a black president.
Not all we, but I'm just
no.
Yeah, that's some. Yeah,
but I think collectively, obviously, we are, since that's who's going to end up being the candidate, right?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know what's going to happen after the debates. I'm keeping some hope alive. I think. Did you guys watch Bernie Sanders' press conference?
Not today.
His press conference. So Bernie Sanders had a press conference, and a lot of people thought he was going to drop out because right now the DNC, because they got their foot on his neck, they're like, just quit.
Right.
They're the big brother right now. say uncle.
Go hard, Bernie.
So Bernie Sanders had a speech basically calling out Joe Biden. Because let's just be real about these debates. It's billionaires that pay millionaires to help other billionaires with ad dollars and keeping the status quo. So the conversation, the debates, do you guys agree that the debates should be regular ass people? I want a black woman that's a security guard. I want a Mexican woman that's flipping burgers at a spot. I want
You want
a
them
day
asking
laborer.
questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
How are you going to represent my issues?
Let that lady ask a motherfucking question. 'Cause she got a real ass question about your policy and
But
your
the
plan.
the presidential race isn't about poor people. It's about speaking to the middle class. We have to make sure that the middle class aren't paying too much taxes. We have to make sure the middle class has health care, has, job security, has all of that. We America doesn't care about poor people. They care about the middle class because the middle class carries America.
Reverend Barber is his name.
But I think so. I think that is totally, and maybe that is what they're appearing to do on the surface.
But that's what Bernie.
But neither one of them are really doing anything for the middle class.
No one's really doing anything for the middle class, but they talk to the middle class because they think it's the middle class that's going to get them elected.
That doesn't even make any sense to me because the wealth inequality is just growing and growing right now.
Yeah, but
like, what is even the middle class right now? What's poor and
But
what's
just
middle?
listen
And
to
then
their
add to that, where
listen
does
to
the
their
middle class
talking.
live,
I
and
mean,
what does
listen
that
to their
mean about how
talking
much
points. They're like
they do with their
when
money?
you're talking about healthcare, you're like, are you going to raise taxes on the middle class? That's the question.
And the answer
They don't
is
care.
always
Like,
yes.
the question. You mean the
No matter who
question
says
isn't
it, it's
ever
yes.
like, how are you going to make sure all poor people are covered? It's like, how are you going to affect middle class? How are you going to affect middle class people's choice?
Okay, so I have a question, and this goes into
Right.
why I asked you about having the whole conversation about how should upwardly mobile people of color vote. So I think that, I was telling my husband, like, when you vote in your local election, to me, you're voting for the things that affect your day to day.
Right.
Like children in their schools, the roads that I drive on, whether or not
Yeah.
they build a new residential housing unit that's going to cause more traffic.
Yeah.
Things like that. But I feel like when you vote on the federal level, you have to be thinking about somebody besides yourself. You have to be thinking about the greater good.
You would think.
And that's how I vote, because I think that none of them really have somebody like mine and my children and my family's best interests at heart. My taxes go up every year. I have more kids. I do all the things that they say you're supposed to do, to be successful and blah, blah, blah. None of those things ever do anything at the, in my pocket. So I vote for it. I know my taxes are going to go up. So if they're going to go up, I'm going to vote for the things that I would like to spend my tax dollars on. And that's social programs to help people that, I was telling Jason earlier, it's like one way or the other, all of us benefited from these types of programs.
Right.
We are where we are. We have what we have because of those programs.
Right.
And so the people who disconnect themselves from that, because they're making more money and they don't want their pocketbooks to be affected by it. But it's real, because you think about the future of your kids. I got to send my kids to college. I got to do this. I got to pay this crazy rent. So it's real. But they put those kind of people in this conflict where they have to either vote for themselves and how much, being able to send their kids to college and live the American dream versus being able to vote for something that really matters, on a larger scale than outside of your own sphere in your own home.
And they lift up your status by reminding you how you are a better American than your poor neighbor. Right.
And if you're, and again, we're in the bubble of the Bay Area. It's like, but I am who I am, and I got where I got because of, let's be real, affirmative action, social welfare, all of those things that give you an opportunity to do your best and to be the best that you may not have otherwise had if those programs were not in place.
Go talk to people in Venezuela and Brazil about their upperly mobile social programs that they had, that people like Lula and Chavez set into place to help the poorest of the poor first. Oh, you guys can't read? Let's get some schools here. So you guys can read. Oh, your kids can't go to school because you don't have any money? Well, let's make sure that everybody's poor kids can go to school. And then look at what that did to that country. Brazil, 40+ million people taken out of poverty with those programs. Venezuela, a very similar number during the Chavez Bolivarian regime. But I feel like here, again, that disconnect from global movements. And when I say that disconnect, I mean like that disconnect on the kind of regular level. Because when I try to watch Black progressive news shows, and every time I find one, they're always so far right of what I think progressive is. And I'm to the point now, I'm like, so who is like really, who cats paying attention to? I know who I pay attention to, but who are cats paying attention to? Is it Kanye, Jay-Z, and Ellen? Like, is that it? I feel like that's it.
People still listen to like Joe Budden and Charlemagne and all those people, or are they like old school?
I think
now?
they have, but they don't really have a voice. They don't say anything. They just give people a
This is true.
platform to say stuff, and maybe they argue with the one person that tells them they're full of shit. And like, who's really telling those guys they're full of shit other than Killer Mike?
I think
Who I
That's
did
my
meet.
boy.
Who I did meet.
That's who should be the next president.
who I did meet, and I got to say, hey, I don't like everything you say.
see, and that's when I first got my
And he
my
said,
first
that's cool,
attack
probably.
was when I had the gall to
Question Killer Mike.
critique Killer Mike. And that's when I got woo.
I will be right next to you. Dude, I met him. He is a giant black man, by the way. And I told him, I was like, dude, I like a lot of the stuff you say. Not everything. And he just he laughed. Like, we both laughed.
Right.
What do you not like?
He's a real big capitalist, and he really thinks that you can just be nice in capitalism. And I'm of the Fred Hampton school that you can't. What did he say? You can't beat capitalism with black capitalism. And Killer Mike does a lot of that, where I dig a lot of the shit that he says because it's shit that needs to be said. And I even like the way he says it. But I don't think he's disconnected enough to see another way.
What's your Killer Mike thing? Killer.
Is it? I think it's a
Am I
hard
putting
R.
ER
I think it's a
in
hard
when
R.
I shouldn't?
I mean, I don't spend much time thinking about Killer Mike, but I believe that
Well, why not?
it was what I think the what got me in trouble was I had the gall to critique how he responded to Black Lives Matter activists, and he wasn't appreciative of black women, stepping up, or he said something like hella crazy, and I was just like, what the hell? And then folks were like, they were like, he's black and he's trying to do this, and how you gonna critique him and blah blah blah. I was like, doesn't mean what he had to say was right.
That's exactly
It was just
what
like,
you were
I don't
saying
know.
earlier,
I was like, what
Jason,
the heck?
though, about the black progressive,
Right.
news, but they always end up going a little bit sideways with the women or the gay
Right.
people, or and it's like, all right, guys.
It's sad because when you're in a movement, if you're part of any movements, Black Lives Matter, right? Who's in the front? Black women.
Yeah.
Usually black queer women.
And I think it was a critique on that. They're like, black women should let men lead, or why aren't they letting men do this? And
Is that a
Yada,
macho
yada.
thing?
That's some
Yeah.
dumb shit to
Or
say.
where does religion play a part?
It plays a huge part. We can't. Hey, we know we can't disconnect ourselves from the bad parts of our religion. We can't sit here and kings and queens and then act like the subjugation of women and the demonization of gays isn't part of the religion.
Right.
It's a part of who we are. We have to acknowledge that and deal with that, and try to work with that, because again, when I read about our history, there's a lot of black queer women that are saying the important shit about all of us. They're not stuck in a black queer, like, all I'm going to talk about is being a black queer woman. It's like, no, I'm going to talk about my struggle, first of all, and how it relates to everybody's struggle, and how are we all going to put together a coalition and a movement and blah, 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 blah. That's what I see in these movements. So to shit on the women that are running Black Lives Matter because they're women or queer, you're missing the point. You're totally missing the point, and you're fucking up the movement. That's how I see it. I mean, there's a reason why I wanted to have black women's voices on here because I shout enough as it is. But we do need to have that voice because just for me in my life, black women didn't just raise me alone. They raised me with a bunch of other black women that weren't related to me in the church. Not that I'm super religious now, but it was those women in church that have helped shape who I am, right? So again, disconnecting ourselves from that legacy, you're really fucking it up. And even historically, like the way we view Rosa Parks, to know that Rosa Parks was investigating rapes in the 40s before that shit was cool.
And I think part of that is the way the story is told because they put her out as this matronly, my feet were just tired and I wanted someone that was the only seat available.
Right.
And like, that's not true.
But it was strategic.
Right.
Yeah.
That's amazing. She wasn't the first woman.
No.
And that picture that we know, that iconic photo of her and the white guy, staged. They took that themselves. The strategy of that movement is powerful. I don't see it anymore. There's some great black academics. There's some amazing black academics that are talking right now, saying some important shit. I think our fingers are in our ears for a lot of it. It can't cut through the noise of the latest Kanye "Make America Great Again" meeting with Donald Trump.
Let me ask you a question, though, and I'm going to ask you because you say you spend every day with black activists.
Not every day. Not every day.
Enough days.
But not enough days.
Have the activists always been the academics, or is that what's changing about it? Is now it's becoming more the intellectuals and the philosophers, and it's less about the core
the
of the
ground
community,
movement.
right?
I recently went to the African American Museum in DC.
Ooh, the real one, not the one in
real
Oakland.
one.
Yeah. And y'all.
I heard it's a movie, like all bullshit aside, I heard it's a very moving experience to go there. You went there?
It is.
I haven't. I've been in DC a lot, but I was always at work.
I was blessed to be able to spend 2 days there. And I actually learned a lot. I'm not going to say that I know everything or, super intellectual or anything. But I learned that a lot of the activism came from intellectuals, And so...
But
the
were
people
they
who-
able to get the grassroots people... Were they able to bring them into, what their vision and what they were seeing for the world and get them riled up in the same way that they were? Because I think that, you think about, they always say, the philosophers of old and whatever were always the people who had money, who were educated, because they were the only ones who could sit around and just talk about this stuff and think about the, eternal verities and, all of what is life? Why is the sky blue?
Right.
But the common person could never really connect with that. But I think they could.
Yeah.
Back
then, there was, the first black woman who was a journalist. I want to say Ida B. Wells, but I'm not quite sure because I'm bad with names. But that's what she wrote. Her writing was about, activism and civil rights and stuff, and she got people activated in that way. I feel kind of there's a disconnect between the academics and the activists
Huge.
here
I think so,
now.
too.
Huge.
Yeah. So, because they, I don't know how many people are reading Ta-Nehisi Coates. I mean, he has some great writing, and it's very long, and it's very big wordy, and it's like it's definitely an academic. And I don't know how many people have the patience to go through and continue to read it, but there's a lot
He
of.
also writes Black Panthers.
He does, yeah.
If you want the abridged version.
I am a big comic book fan, so thank you for lifting that up. But so I do think there's a disconnect because I think a lot of activists are about, okay, we need to be practical, we need to plan, we need to do what we're going to do now. And so I don't know if there is a interconnection between the two as much as there should be.
I can say this much. So there was a person that was supposed to be on the show this week that could not make it. She worked with Angela Davis, and I can't remember the woman's name. They just had a big New York Times piece about her. That's a prison abolitionist. And I wanted to talk about prison abolition. She couldn't make it. She had some family shit. So we were talking about 13th documentary and Ava DuVernay. And she just went off about, I wouldn't say the inaccuracies about that movie, but, I will say the inaccuracies about that movie from a prison abolition standpoint as far as not telling the whole story. And when we talk about criminal reform and prison abolition, we definitely deal with a very small subset of the population that's like nonviolent drug offenders. And if you're a prison abolitionist, you don't believe in prisons. So it means you got to deal with the murderers and the rapists, right? That's what they always say. What's about the murderers and rapists? Having her yell in my ear about the 13th documentary and then the new Jim Crow, which I thought was a good book. And I was like, and I had to calm her down at one point. I was like, hey, if you don't read that book, then you definitely don't understand James Foreman Jr.'s book, Locking Up Our Own. If you haven't read James Foreman Jr.'s Locking Up Our Own, remind me, Alex, to put a link for James Foreman Jr. Locking Up Our Own. There's an interview he did on Democracy Now! About it. It won some book award. It really goes deep into policies that we as black people have voted for, that we are paying for now, especially when it comes to mass incarceration. And I'm not even talking about the omnibus crime bill. I'm talking about things like legalizing marijuana in the 70s. And he was a public defender. And I was like, I can't read that if I don't read New Jim Crow, right? Amazon's got to tell me what to read next.
If you read this, you may also like.
Right? 13th documentary gets me ready for the hard-hitting facts of real criminal justice and prison reform. It gets me ready to be able to talk to Chesa Boudin about no cash bail and the importance of sheriffs and things like that. I need that intro drug to get me ready for the hard shit. I feel like that's that disconnect between the academic class and kind of quote unquote normies, right? Like, oh God, they don't know this, that, and the third. How am I going to talk to them? It's like, bitch, teach them. Teach them. If we're not helping each other, then we're hurting each other.
Word.
Fuck. So
And don't be condescending about it.
Go. It's all good.
Did you guys have a workable?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, if you walk out the door and make a right, it's the executive washroom. The
Front door? Because I'm not walking out the front door.
no, just the door to the
I
room.
texted him. I was like, "Where do you have me right now?" I don't do this anymore. Where am I?
Oh.
Let's take a break real quick, Alex. Let's take a break. Think about this for a second. No. Talking to the mic.
We're back.
How do you shut down everything when there's so many different, the FAA, the FDA, the NHI, the CDC,
ABC 1, 2, 3.
Because Donald
and
Trump
now
doesn't care about
we're
any
talking.
of that.
That's federal. About the state governments, transportation. Now the MTA. So. How do you do that when you disassemble the one department whose job it was to handle that, and you've given that job to a guy that is definitely way in over his head, so far so that the staff is literally leaking shit to the Associated Press saying, homie doesn't know what he's doing. He already fucked up Indiana when they had a drug problem. You think he can handle
The
this?
HIV thing too, right? Isn't he one of those?
Yes,
Yeah.
he's definitely one of those.
What are you talking about?
Mike Pence.
Okay. I was thinking Carson.
So here's
Ben
the
Carson. Did you see Ben Carson's interview?
For the coronavirus, it was
Oh, God.
that
saw
was
that?
it's the bane of my existence working for an elected because so many
can't.
people are like concerned that they don't trust the federal government knows what they're doing because Ben Carson didn't have an answer for anything. That interview
He's
was the
the HUD
worst
director.
thinking.
Well, I read today that they're keeping all of the meetings about it, like behind closed doors too, and even people like medical professionals and
Yeah.
stuff like that should be involved in those conversations.
Yes.
They don't have the right press pass or whatever, and they can't get in.
So Mike Pence came out, and I believe he said that the tests are going to be free. He goes, Donald Trump met with all of the health service providers, the private insurance companies, and the tests will be free. But he hasn't said anything about the antiviral that might come out.
Has there been a cost associated with the tests thus far?
Yes,
Yeah,
$3,200.
they were private. Yeah.
How much?
$3,200.
Each.
To the individual?
Yeah.
What?
Well, charged by an insurance.
If your insurance,
If you're
but they're
uninsured.
waiving co-pays apparently now.
Oh, $30.
But they're
And
not
they send
putting
you
a
a bill for
moratorium
$3,200.
on. I actually signed that petition to put a moratorium on evictions and foreclosures in Oakland and San
Yeah.
Francisco.
Yeah.
They haven't done anything about that federally. Statewide,
no, there's no.
no,
conversation.
but there is some programs like if you have to take care of a family member with corona, you can get
Yeah, the EDD.
the EDD.
So the only
Which
thing
pays you
that they're not
55%
really,
of your income.
the only thing they're not really protecting are the Uber Lyft drivers. But I think Uber and Lyft are, because they're hearing the demand, they're trying to do something around that. But yeah, if you
I heard today they were doing something.
they were
for
doing
them.
something around it. So if you are taking care of someone that's sick, then you can apply for disability. If you lost work hours because of their company's imposing,
don't go to work.
then you can apply for unemployment. I mean, there's all kinds of things on the state website about it. And I only know this because, again, of who I work for.
Oh, I actually saw it. I saw
Yeah,
the whole
there's a
thing. Like, if you're taking
website,
care
yeah.
of somebody, you can get up to $1,300 a week.
Yeah. So,
And
But-
that's ca.gov.
Yes.
yeah.
Dot
EDD.
EDD.
Yeah.
We'll put a link up.
I think it's like edd.ca.gov. Yeah.
But what's so frustrating, we'll talk about that on the bonus half.
Right.
I want to finish this discussion about colored people and voting.
Colored people.
Black people, black women.
What did I say?
Colored people.
Minorities when I was messaging you? I was like, let me say people of color.
People of color.
I think that's the thing we're allowed to
Hell,
say.
You know
Well,
what?
like, why would you say black and brown? That's
So I work on
capitalized black. Shout out to Monica Brooks. Sorry.
Say it with your chest.
Yeah.
That's why I said
Please.
shout out to
Wait, what does that mean though? Why can't you say black and brown? Is that what you said?
That's like, why can we not just say black and brown? People of color is awesome, but we are black, and when you lump us with people of color, then you're like,
But we're not just talking about black people.
I know,
Though.
I
Talking
know.
about Asians too.
Talking about anybody that's not white.
Yeah, but there's this movement to separate black people from the people of color phrase. Yeah,
Interesting.
to say, yeah.
And when you say brown people, what about Latin people or Indian
Does
people?
brown mean like islanders as well?
Yeah. I mean, I think everyone else but black people are lumped together.
Everyone else.
People are. I think that's the goal.
So-
I mean, like,
So before we kill this topic, I watched an interview. My mom is also a socialist. My mom is actually an activist. When I picked up my son
Of course
today,
she is.
my mom, she wasn't always. She definitely had some issues. My mom, I love you, Mom. By the way, you are every day.
Mama.
You are my inspiration. That being said,
know I love you.
so every time we have black people on here,
You
there's always
know
singing.
I love you, mama.
So my mom listens to this woman's show.
You guys always have to sing stuff.
There's always a Negro spiritual in here.
Right?
That's what it's
Wait.
swing low.
She listens to a show called The Karen Hunter Show, and I hear it sometimes in passing. I don't pay attention to it, but Brianna Joy Gray was on this woman's show. And Brianna Joy Gray always has real interesting stuff to say to me. I loved the work she did when she was at The Intercept, which is one of my favorite news sites. If anybody hasn't checked The Intercept, read The Intercept.
There'll be a link to it.
There'll be a link to it. A lot of the good great journalists that are that Glenn Greenwald, Jeremy Scahill, Mehdi Hassan, Naomi Klein. Sean King's got his own site now, but I think he had done some stuff there for a minute. Anyway,
Talcum X.
What'd you say? Tom Hanks?
Talcum X.
Talcum?
Yeah.
Talcum X?
Yes.
He named himself after powder?
No.
His parents named him after
Do
powder?
you know? That's what he's called because they think he's a fake revolutionary.
Oh, Sean King.
Yeah, that's what you're talking about? No.
Oh, yeah. You called him Talcum X.
Do you know there was a trending when he came after
I was gonna say, who's that?
I was like, that's a fucked up name. Your parents suck.
he came at Rachel Maddow and folks, and he was hecka wrong. He was so wrong, but he doubled down.
Oh, when he said Rachel Maddow reported
That he was super wrong.
Wait, what
and
happened? I want to know.
So I think a reporter during the other special Super Tuesday was saying that, you know, he had heard that big DNC officials were pressuring people to drop out. And so then he went on Twitter and said, Rachel Maddow and so are saying that the DNC or, you know, whatever. And Rachel Maddow didn't say that. She just said, it's surprising to hear someone else say that the DNC are doing this. And so he totally misquoted her.
NAACP person, right? Oh my God.
No,
I'm
she's the
so
white
wrong.
MSNBC lady.
Same letters.
Who am I getting him mixed up with?
Mm-hmm.
What's the one who was the head of the NAACP that really came, they ended up being white? And what's her name?
Rachel Dolezal.
Dolezal. But no.
Oh my God, cut all that out. Cut all that out of the.
All right.
I was like, why do people care what she's saying?
Rachel That should be the cover, a picture of Rachel Dolezal. Can you make that, Alex, a picture of Rachel Dolezal and Rachel Maddow, and then have me going like this? I don't know. Which one is it?
Oh my God.
No.
I watched the documentary about Rachel Dolezal, by the way.
Crazy.
Did you watch that?
Yes.
Because you know what's
Love that
funny?
stuff.
When she tanned herself, she was like your color.
Yeah.
I thought even without the tan, she had a little something.
I've been to Spokane probably 15 times, maybe more. And one of the times I went to Spokane, they have a weekly paper like we have the East Bay Express, whatever the fuck they had their version. And I read a piece about Dolezal. It was right when she got outed. And I read it, and it was actually really, really interesting. The documentary I thought was really interesting about her. Not joking, I've been to Spokane probably 15 times. Never seen a black person.
I don't know if I've been to Spokane. No, I've been to Spokane.
Fuck you in Spokane for?
Well, is it the risk of sounding dumb again? Is it near Portland?
Nope.
No, it's
Is it
on
near
that.
Seattle?
3 hours east.
Maybe I've just driven through it. Because I've been to Portland and Seattle.
Yeah.
I used to live in Portland. That's joy.
My dad lives in Portland.
Does he? I always tell people that Portland is like Atlanta for white people. Portland is where white people go and they don't want to be around brown people anymore.
Yeah.
There's a
dark
lot
here.
of black people in Portland.
It's like bizarre.
Bullshit!
There's a lot
We
of
were
black.
just in Portland. I didn't see no niggas there.
You know my brother
You
Michael.
gotta go to
Yeah.
Northeast
His
Portland.
entire family is from Portland. That's where my stepmother is from.
Look, man, you could talk all
That's
this
what
black
my
people in
my
Portland.
brother used to try to convince me because I graduated high school there, and he'd be like, "You should come back. There's a lot of black people now." I'm like, really? Because
Yeah.
I don't
I was
believe
gonna
you.
say Portland is like bizarro Brooklyn. It's like the opposite,
The opposite.
but also weird in the same ways.
It's like King Hipster.
Yeah.
Portland is like people hella try to outcool you. Remember we were there on tour once. We stopped through there getting coffee,
Yeah.
and it was just the illest vibe in this coffee shop. Like we weren't even trying to. We just want coffee, and we're getting looked at like you're not cooler than me.
Yeah, we're just looking around
Portland.
and like, wow, everyone here is so cool.
It's like
Yeah.
back in the day when
Yeah.
you used to go to Pete's. They were like that.
You mean like back in the day
Back
before
in the
coffee
day.
shops were cool?
And you go to Pete's and they were like, you want milk in your coffee? And you want me to steam it?
I have to say this on air. So
So
Tonya
as a result of that kerfuffle with Rachel Maddow, Twitter was trending with all kinds of names making fun of Sean King, and so I showed it to him.
So before I read these names about Sean King, Nina, you know who he is.
I
light-skinned.
don't. I'm so
He's
out
a
of touch.
light-skinned dude that always like a black man got beaten in the head by a white cop.
Yeah, he supposedly originated with he I guess wherever he was, the night of the big Ferguson, protest, he went down and he basically live tweeted and did some social media activism. And ever since then, he's just kind of blown up as the guy that's, at
If you
thinking
get
it's
your ass beat,
progressive.
he's going to tell somebody you got your ass
everybody.
beat.
Is he?
Yeah.
Does he have a Netflix documentary also?
No.
No.
Okay.
But these are his Twitter names. He's also he's so light that it's like, are you dull as
Do
hell?
you even get to
Right.
say anything?
Yeah.
Like if he said an N word, like you get mad at him.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I think I'm offended.
So these are the top 10 Sean King Twitter names: Talcum X, Fraudrick Douglas,
Dang it.
Martin Luther Cream,
I gotta look him up.
Cream Abdul Jabbar, Plaster P, Snow J Simpson. This one might be my favorite. Hulis Newton. Wait a minute.
Come on, that's a brother. You could tell he is. Come on.
I was on air the other day saying that I got mad at Ray Lindsay when he said the N word because I thought he was Puerto Rican.
Dang it.
Alexander Scambleton, Stokely Carbuncle, and last but not least, Blankston Hughes.
I
Blankston
mean, he
Hughes.
doesn't look any more white than Colin Kaepernick.
No, I mean it's not about. I mean it's not about the fact that he's really light. It's the fact that
pretty
he is pretty
It's a little bit
light.
about that.
But it's about him, just being wrong and just being,
But
so-
was he right about other shit?
some stuff he's right about. I mean, I think it's great that he airs out when black men are being abused.
He's
and
definitely
all this
there.
stuff.
He's like the first dude
He's
on
there.
the scene. If you
He's
get
on
your
the
ass
scene,
beat.
and I'm glad that
Somebody
he
needs to be there.
Yeah, somebody needs to be there. And I'm glad that he kind of helped elevate the discussion, but it wasn't just him. And there's rumors that, like he's supposed to be, fundraising for something. And you're like, where's the money going? That kind of
I heard
thing.
about that. I heard
And so people are,
You'll have that.
yeah.
Do you
So
think that's hate, though? You think there's a little bit of the so-called hate because he does have such a large platform?
no, I think people were talking about him before his platform really blew up.
So do you think he's light-skinned Van Jones?
I don't know. I just think he's in a category all by himself. So he really
He's not
messed-
Van Jones level yet.
Yeah, no. Anywho,
So
I think
the people that were supposed to be here,
Yeah.
they're supposed to be here, told me some Van. So after we calmed
Yeah.
down about Ava DuVernay and Michelle, whatever her name is, I can't think right now, that wrote New Jim Crow. I said something about Van Jones jokingly, and then she went off about Van Jones because she's known him for like 30 years or 20-some years. She was like, Van Jones is coming to Berkeley all the time, and he used to fuck up our shit. Because he'd come in and like do this fucking tactic, and when she was talking about this shit, I kind of know what she's talking about, but not really because she's just so mad. Talk about, and she goes, "Who listens to a man with a lisp anyway?"
Dang it.
I was like, "Damn!" I was like, "Was this back when he was a Maoist?" She was like, "He wasn't no Maoist." And I was like, "Yeah, apparently Van Jones was like a Maoist." She's like, "No, not buying it." Like went off on that motherfucker.
I want to know who this is because I want to meet her.
She was supposed to be here, man. Actually, Nina, you know who she is.
Oh, okay.
We'll say off air. I don't want to.
That's fine.
Berkeley or Albany? Okay.
It's fun. She's a professor now.
Yeah.
It was just funny to hear somebody talk that much shit about Van Jones from like back in the day. Like, damn, he really was all. He's been this way. She's like, fuck him. And she was also fuck him and his lisp. I was like, damn.
She's got personal.
So you can see why I wanted her on the show. It's gonna be some
Right.
interesting, sophisticated fuck
We
yous.
need to cuss more. All right, let's do it. Fuck them.
Bonus half. All
But
the
see,
cussing.
when I cuss, people laugh because so there's
too adorable.
like my friends. Yes.
when you say the
So my friends made a meme of me with little birdies on my shoulder because that's how they view me
Like
as
Snow White.
as the princess, as the sweet one, the innocent. That's who I am in my group of friends. And so to hear me cuss is like,
Am I that person? Jason?
Innocent and sweet. I wouldn't say you're mean.
well, I mean, I have a story behind why I don't cuss.
I will say this: you walk down here with like it was any old block,
Right.
and anyone that does that, I always look at you a little different. Like, why are you so comfortable? How many
grew
bodies
up.
is on your gun?
But I mean, I grew up.
She just said she went and marched through deep East Oakland.
But I also grew up low income. You know, I grew up, me and my mom and my brother, we would share one room apartments, and I worked to help pay the bills, not just to buy makeup.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know what it's like to be, there was a certain point in my life where I was homeless. I was, sleeping on people's couches and stuff. So I know what it's like. And I guess I'm the true embodiment of never forgetting where I came from.
That being said, does Joe Biden represent the working class?
Oh, like I said, I think he represents middle.
You think he's the middle class?
I think so.
Do you think that Bernie Sanders represents the working class?
I think he wants to. I don't think he's done enough to really reach the working class. I think he aspires to do that. I think he aspires to help. But has he reached them? Has he actually talked to them? Has he, I don't know.
It's interesting because I feel like when I'm always interacting with the quote unquote working class daily, they're just so disconnected from anything. And I think also as black people, historically, outside of the Obama election, we've never really had an election to get juiced about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm the opposite of you. I'm not an Obama fan. Mm-hmm. But I do understand the significance. Like you reminded me of that moment in 2008. She really did. She painted that picture. Like I remember while I was getting off BART the day he got elected. I was actually living with a white family that's not my own. That's another story. It's funny. So
he went in the corner and was like, "Woo!"
Were you not?
They were voting for McCain.
Right.
Were you not stoked on him back then, or were you?
I didn't trust it. I'm not going to say I read that Adolph Reed piece in fucking 2008. I came across it a little after the fact, but there were some pieces that were the Black Agenda Report writers like Glenn Fort were saying about Obama that were coming across my social media sphere at the time. I even think it might have been through our mutual friend Jabir Fakir. I can't remember exactly, but there definitely was a lot of skepticism about Obama. And my biggest skepticism was like, what did he do? Because this is back before, I came of political age in the Reagan era because I listened to baseball games, and after baseball games, Rush Limbaugh came on. Oof. So I've grown up listening to some sort of political discourse for some time. And Reagan was governor of California for a long time. George Bush was governor of Texas. I'm not saying these people were great. Bill Clinton was governor of Arkansas. So everyone had held a political office for a long time. And what did Obama do? The knock on Obama was like, he didn't really do anything. Right? He was a state senator for one term or two.
He actually was elected to Congress.
Was he in Congress? Was he a senator or a state senator?
No, I think he was
a congressman.
He was either one of those, but I know he was in D.C.
Well, remember when his state seat was getting sold by what's his name that Trump just pardoned?
Yeah, but I think he did do not just. He wasn't there for a long time, but he was there at least, one session.
I think he was
running to get
reelected.
And then he decided to do the president thing.
But
I only got that from Michelle Obama's book. Now, Michelle, that's my girl.
I'm not surprised Hillary Clinton ran for president because I remember 2000 when Bill was leaving office and it was like, who's going to be the next Democrat to take up the mantle? It'll be Hillary because she had the political background, right? We've all heard her talk about, I was a Goldwater girl, whatever. And 2016, I felt like a lot of us felt lost. There wasn't a candidate to get behind. Hillary out there talking about I bring hot sauce because she's around a room full of black people. That just was like, really, homie?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know why I don't
care for
like
spicy
you.
food.
What?
I said I don't care for spicy food.
Oh,
We all don't have hot sauce.
Right.
right. I don't.
Like when she said that, I was like, I've been black for 43 years.
Dang it, bro.
That's a long ass time to be black as fuck. And I've never met a black person that brought hot sauce with them.
Oh, I have.
Oh,
Have you?
Yeah.
I've never met one.
They carry it around in their purse.
Do they?
Yes.
Never met one.
I know.
Do you? Mm-hmm. Introduce me to these motherfuckers. Because
Okay.
I never met a black person just like, hold on. And then just fucking take out hot
Oh.
sauce.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
I have a friend. She has a whole bunch of stuff just in her car, but she also has like
One of those things. Hot sauce.
but she also has, sauces. But I'm just like,
That's some rare shit. Like, this chicken is bland. It's like, did you just take out the seasoning?
Yes,
from
right.
Red Robin?
There might be some Lowry's in there.
if I was a condiment carrying person, mine would be lemon pepper for sure.
Lemon
Just on
pepper.
everything?
Yeah, I use
Like,
lemon pepper.
oh, that fish is, there's a barbecue spot in Oakland. I won't name them, fuck them. But it's kind of one of them like white people barbecue spots.
Right.
And I had hopes for it because I was like, maybe this is going to be like really good meat or something.
Yeah.
That shit. So my girl is not black. She's Filipino. So the first thing she said, she took a bite of this pulled pork sandwich. She goes, did they even season this?
Oh,
Right.
they like them some
And I was
seasoned
like,
food too.
"Ooh,
Yeah.
When you say it,
Yeah.
you know that's all bad. You can't have a barbecue place in Oakland and have. Did they even season this? And the sauce was eh.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, never met a black person carry the sauce.
So
You
let
said
me
she's
ask a question.
Filipino?
though.
Filipino.
Yeah, they like to eat.
They like seasoned food. They like spicy food.
Yeah,
So let me ask the question. then. I know it's been asked.
they eat good food, and they're not.
So was the goal so if you were excited about Obama because of the precedent it set, because of the picture of the little boy touching his head in the Oval Office, do you feel like that was enough? Like, do you feel like that goal was met? Because I've got two little boys, and it means something to me that that precedent was set.
Yeah.
Whether or not he did any of the stuff that he set out to do, that still means something to me.
Right.
And am I holding on to is that more important than?
I think he did everything that he set out to do.
Yeah.
Being-
But-
He didn't do everything that he said he was going to set out to do. That's the only thing I could say in favor of Donald Trump.
mean,
By
I
the way,
think
he has
one
done
of
every single thing. That he
One of the
said he
things
was
that
going
his
to do.
biggest critique was how
What about the wall?
he ACA,
yeah.
how the public option was fail. Another big critique was that he could have pushed harder for,
He had
criminal
both
justice
houses.
reform.
Oh no! I mean,
He could have, and I know,
yeah.
I think probably one of Jabir's big critiques was his foreign policy.
Yeah.
He
All
was
the things.
just
He was
as,
tough on
and other people,
immigration. He was- yeah,
immigration,
all
all
of
of
those
that.
Supporter in chief.
But what the difference? I liked him for being the first black and for being black while he was president. He didn't, fake the funk. But
Had the Denzel
I also,
did.
I also had my eyes open about, his faults and what he didn't do and what he didn't accomplish. And even now that he's not president, I'm looking at him with serious side eye because some of these conferences that he's been on, and he's,
now he has
how
an
we should
opportunity
behave
to really
and,
make a difference that maybe
and-
he couldn't have made while he was in office, and I don't think he's taken that opportunity.
He has not endorsed Joe Biden.
He's not endorsed anyone.
He hasn't endorsed anyone, which I
Yeah.
think is very interesting.
But a lot of people are mad because he's featured in all these commercials, but people are like, you don't understand.
Producing documentaries.
He's in everybody's commercial. I mean, he was in a particular person's commercial first because the dude had money to get it. But he's been in everyone's, even Bernie's. He's been in, and they supposedly have beef, but Bernie talked about him in his
Well,
campaign.
him and Mike Bloomberg have beef. Obama and Mike Bloomberg.
Yeah, that's what I'm
not get
saying.
along.
But
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
like, why is, Obama all in Mike Bloomberg's, because everyone using the footage, which was probably,
They love
copyright free. I mean, they just put him in it.
The love that Obama gets really showed me the power of projection. You could project anything you want on Obama.
Right.
He's a great blank canvas for that when it comes, because we didn't talk about his foreign policy that much. We didn't talk about drone bombings in Yemen that much. We didn't talk about him being the deporter in chief. You want to get mad at kids in cages?
It started.
He started that.
He didn't
No,
force it.
He didn't do it the same way. Trump came in and changed the law about the felony when you cross the border.
But it was in Obama administration law. Yes.
A lot of the things that we see, for better or for worse, are putting Tim Geithner in your cabinet as the first person you put in your cabinet. Right.
What's that Chicago mayor that everybody hates?
Rahm Emanuel.
Right.
Oh.
He was.
They did hate him.
He was Wall Street's dude. Harvey K said he gave a wink and a nod to Wall Street. Like, I'll condemn you, but I'll give the wink and the nod that I got your back. And he definitely did do that. All that being said, thank you guys for showing up for this half. We're going to talk about coronavirus and capitalism in the second half, which is the Patreon half. The pay for half. If you guys haven't done it already, please sign up to be a patron. We give you so much bonus content. We just recently had a concert here with Chris Riggins Smoking Jokes and his band, which was fucking awesome, and LAL from Toronto. That's all for patrons.
Yeah, awesome. We should just say who they are. They're an awesome band that we had the pleasure of seeing in Toronto when we were on tour and playing a show with them.
LAL.
Yeah. And to have them here was really cool and really interesting music. So
progressive poetry over beats, and then Chris Riggins Smoking Jokes is like, imagine hip hop Frank Sinatra with a dope ass live band doing like tribe and roots beats.
Yeah,
telling some of the fun. It was pretty funny.
Shit.
It was funny. I'd never seen anything like it. I didn't realize Alex recorded it all, and when he told me, "Dude, I got it all," I was like, "Word, we're putting it up on the Patreon."
Yep. So we got both live sets up there.
So here's a song that you guys will hear soon.